everybody's head blew when Matt Gaetz got nominated to be Attorney General. Tell me what you thought.
I was shocked. I took a couple of minutes to pick my jaw up off the floor because Matt Gaetz is certainly he is well known in D.C., but I don't think he would be the first person you would think of to head up the Justice Department. However, that said, I wouldn't call him anything. I wouldn't go to the ends that people have said that he's not qualified. I mean, if you are interested in Ivy League pedigree, he's got that covered. If you're interested in someone who is willing to go toe to toe with agency heads, he has done that in many different contentious congressional hearings. So he demonstrates both strategy and intellect. He's sharp. And number three, I mean, he understands that there are so many, the deep state is deep. And the weaponization of the Justice Department under Merrick Garland means that anybody who comes in there can only be a +1 in terms of just rooting out the type of corruption, the type of misgivings and political targeting against regular Americans, speaking out at your kids' public school hearing because you want to make sure that there's accountability, rather than focusing the target of the federal government on the bad guys, the terrorists, and so on. So, I look forward to seeing if he survives the confirmation hearing. But if nothing else, it's just great to see MSNBC and I'm sure The View ladies just falling and collapsing on the floor over this one.
Rob, you guys at the Daily Signal are in touch with the movement. What was the reaction by sort of the people that read the Daily Signal? Like, were they excited? Were they fired up?
Definitely. I sense a lot of excitement just because, as you noted, Sean, Matt Gaetz is a known quantity. I mean, people are familiar with him from his contentious exchanges at hearings with people like Merrick Garland and others. I mean, he's somebody who is a very prolific communicator. I think that there's a pattern here in Donald Trump's choices. I mean, you see it with Matt Gaetz, you see it with Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard. You see it with Pete Hegseth, obviously, given his role on Fox and Friends. I mean, Trump is looking for people who can communicate effectively to the American people and I think articulate a vision for how he wants to see this country governed. Now, under Matt Gaetz, I'm sure that his deputies and the people who will be leading the individual departments will need to execute all of those different policy ideas. I mean, you have somebody on the top and they are not necessarily always getting into the weeds of everything. But generally speaking, I sense that, aside from the disappointment yesterday over the John Thune election from the MAGA crowd, they have been very pleased with Trump's election so far.
Doug, I'm going to put this mildly. I don't think Matt plays well with everyone. And that includes, right, I get it, the Democrats are not going to like him. But there's some, I mean, you think about, like, Kevin McCarthy's obviously gone, right? So, but he took him head on. But there are others, even in the Republican conference in the House, and I get that it's the Senate that has to confirm him, who on a personality basis have issues with maybe how their interactions with Matt. From your standpoint, where do you think his prospects are going forward?
It's going to be tough. Look, I mean, it's like everything. If you go into the world of, Twitterverse, Xverse, whatever you want to call it now, the social media realm, that's an isolated world that talks to itself. The reality is, as you just saw yesterday in the Senate, they elected John Thune. Most of us who've watched the Senate for most of our time and we've ever watched it knew that was going to be the outcome. I mean, you were maybe looking at it different, but you already knew McConnell had 15 to 20 votes already. And McConnell, and I am saying that correctly, McConnell had those votes in his pocket. He knew who he was going to support, and it played out that way. And the 12 to 13 votes for Scott was sort of the pre-baked number that you thought was going to go there. Doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean anything else. I'm a realist, and it's just where it was. Now, the problem is Thune does not have the deep pockets of McConnell. He does not have 18 years of being leader. He does not been there and get most of them elected. So he's going to have to tread much more to Trump than McConnell ever would in this situation. All of that said, and you brought up the House, there's a reason Jim Jordan is not Speaker. Okay? There's a reason Steve Scalise is not Speaker. It's because of internal House dynamics, and internal Senate dynamics are true, and they're isolated. Senate is even more isolated than the House are because most of them are 4 to 6 years away from being elected. They don't even care until they get into the 2-year cycle. So his prospects in the Senate, I've already heard, and y'all may have heard different. I've heard at least 3 to 4 who've already said, no, this is probably not going to happen, which puts him at the minimal, the vice president having to put him over. I think it's also why, and I'll throw this in here, why you heard a lot about recess appointments.
Yep.
And this could get interesting. But this could be actually into a constitutional recess appointment, because the same ones in the Senate may not vote for him. They're also not going to vote for a recess knowing he would get appointed. So it puts the House and the Senate at odds, which the president then again, I didn't do my research on this. I apologize for that.
No.
I don't know when the last time a president actually adjourned the House and the Senate under that condition. So, but if that happens, but then remember, he also goes in as acting, not as confirmed. And if we remember Chad Wolf at Homeland Security in the last administration and others, there were a lot of lawsuits brought about things and actions that they did, saying that an acting position can't do these things.
Yeah, the current labor secretary and the Biden administration continues to be active.
But they ruled that she could. Was her name Chu or Shu? They said she has the full authority to stay in there.
No, my understanding is that was not a recess appointment. She was already in a different position at labor, and basically.
But so was Chad. He was undersecretary.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think she was undersecretary.
Correct. Yeah, if you go back, remember, Sean, you'll remember this: the lawsuit against the Obama administration when he appointed by recess appointment to the NLRB. Yep. I believe the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, even. So, yeah, this is there are even conservatives who I think are nervous about Trump using the recess appointment powers when it comes to installing people into these positions. And so my hope is that the Republican senators can get together and even if it comes down to J.D. Vance's tie-breaking vote, you'll have a situation where we won't need to get into that scenario.